Was it the goal to knowingly and intentionally allow these guns to go into Mexico?
Was that the ultimate goal? Not as explained to me. Was that the rules in play to achieve what the goal that they had explained? Yes. We were mandated, let these guns go. Make no mistake, there was not a time we were out there on surveillance where we didn't have the forethought that these were going to be recovered in crimes. The next time we became aware of these guns would be when they were recovered at their final crime. Not whatever crime they might have done. It was the last crime that they commit, not they commit, but the person who has them commit, that they're recovered in. There may be 9 or 10 that the cartels have perpetrated with those firearms prior to that date, but that recovery date is when we'll learn about it.
All right, well, there are new accusations against the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Critics say that the federal agency is now retaliating by firing the agent who blew the whistle on the mission that allowed thousands of guns to get into the hands of Mexican drug lords. That's known as Fast and Furious. Some of those weapons, 2 of them, in fact, were found at the scene when Border Patrol agent Brian Terry was gunned down in December of last year. Now, the ATF whistleblower Vince Cefalu joins me now. Also joining us right now is Congressman Darrell Issa. He is the chairman of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, who's led these hearings into this investigation of Operation Fast and Furious. Vince, it is good to have you with us this morning. Welcome.
Martha, thank you for having me on. More importantly, thank you for keeping the spotlight on.
Absolutely. So what happened? How did you get the word after 24 years of service at ATF that you were basically, your badge was being taken away and your gun was taken away as well, correct?
That's correct. And I was invited in by my second line supervisor with 2 other witnesses and apprised of that without any warning. When I challenged it to them, they said that they were doing just what the attorneys had told them to do, which is the standard protocol anymore for decisions within this bureau.
And what did they say was the reason that they were taking away your badge after 24 years and many years of exemplary reports of your work at ATF?
The basic underpinning was lack of candor, which is totally fabricated, and several other allegations regarding conduct that apparently occurred 4 or 5 years ago. I'm really not clear on all that. Yeah. The attorneys are reviewing it now.
Let's take a look at the ATF statement that they produced to FoxNews.com when they were asked that question about why you were being let go. It says ATF will not comment on specific ongoing personnel matters, and it is legal to use disciplinary actions to retaliate against employees, and ATF does not engage in such improper reprisals. But you, in fact, are the person who brought attention to the Fast and Furious program and to the fact that weapons were basically being put in the hands of people who gave them to cartels, and that 2 of those guns, in fact, were found at the scene of ATF border agent at his death, Brian Terry, correct?
That is correct. I was instrumental in fact, formulating the idea to stand up a website to expose the across-the-board mismanagement in ATF.
And what made you do that, Vince? What made you do that? What prompted that?
Outcries from hundreds of agents across the country when my original dispute started, and I realized that there was no mechanism in the government, any mechanisms that there were to communicate with senior management and report abuses were broken, and the leadership continually disregarded our reports, our allegations, no matter how well we substantiate them with documentation. They're well documented, by the way.
And, you know, as you know, the president and Eric Holder have basically said that they had no knowledge of this Fast and Furious program. We're still trying to figure out who authorized this program because, as you say, yourself and many, many agents on the ground thought that this was a crazy way to go about this and that it would put guns in the hands of the wrong people. You know, do you feel vindicated in the information that you put out there through your website?
I feel instrumental in doing my job. That's all I ever wanted to do. We don't cheat to win. We play by the rules. And when our leadership chose to not play by the rules, people stepped forward. Agent Dodson, Agent Gill, all the people who have come out front and put themselves in a position. So the agency had to identify the poster boy. Watch what happens to Vince Cefalu before you consider stepping forward.
I'm David Ortiz. In the hours, days, and weeks ahead, we can expect a concerted attack on the right to own firearms and the Second Amendment in response to the shooting in Colorado last night. Proponents of disarming the public will argue that restricting the right to own firearms will prevent mass murders and violence. But here's something they will not tell you. The chance you will be a victim of a mass shooting is at best minuscule. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, the proportion of homicide incidents involving 2 victims has increased slightly from 2.7% in 1980 to 3.7% in 2008. So basically within about a 30-year window, that number has barely increased. Here are some more numbers. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, 3.7% of all homicides involved 2 victims, 0.5% involved 3 victims, 0.2% involved 4 victims, and 0.1% involved 5 or more victims. So obviously mass murders are rarely happening, yet they continue to want to gun grab the government. Moreover, the homicide rate in the United States has declined sharply in recent years from 9.3 homicides per 100,000 in 1992 to 4.8 homicides per 100,000 in 2010. So this is obviously far from an epidemic, yet the government wants control of your guns. And here's one of the reasons why. I'm going to give you some quick stories. A 71-year-old recently was at a gaming cafe in Florida. 2 intruders came in, one with a bat, one with a gun. They wanted to rob the place. He shot a gun, and the perpetrators ran away. And as a result, one bystander says, "I think he is wonderful for doing what he did, for protecting us." And that could actually be seen on YouTube, from what I'm told. Another example of law-abiding citizens protecting themselves with a gun. In Phoenix recently, a 14-year-old boy protected his 3 younger brothers from an intruder who broke into their home with a gun. He shot at the intruder with his father's gun, and he struck the intruder, and the intruder ran away. That recently happened in Phoenix. And just another story that recently happened in Oklahoma City. A woman was able to protect both herself and her child. An intruder came in, tried to kick in her door. He came at her with a knife, and her name, Mrs. McKinley. She took out her 12 gauge, and she shot the perpetrator and was able to save the life of both her child and herself. But the government would say that's evil. It's, she was wrong, obviously. So those are just some great examples, and you don't see that in the media. Examples of people protecting their loved ones because they used a firearm. Let me end with this. It's a quote from Ben Franklin, and it said, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety."
Let's get started right into the saga that is James Holmes, the so-called Batman massacre. I guess he's just the crazy nut now, but now we've learned that he has DARPA connections in his past. So let's just go over these real quick. In fact, they go all the way back to his grandfather. James Holmes was one of 6 recipients of the National Institutes of Health Neuroscience Training Grant at the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus in Denver. That was found by Wayne Madsen. The medical campus is recently decommissioned site for the U.S. Army's Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center and is named after Philip Anschutz, the billionaire Christian fundamentalist oil and railroad tycoon. Furthermore, Holmes also worked as a research assistant intern at the Salk Institute of the University of California at San Diego. Now, he did this in high school. And the Salk Institute teamed up with DARPA, Columbia University, the University of California at San Francisco, and the University of Wisconsin, Wake Forest, and the candy bar company Mars to prevent fatigue and combat troops through enhanced use of a blood-flowing, dilating antioxidant flavanol found in cocoa. So they made this magic chocolate that would keep troops going all the time. And so there's your first DARPA connection. The second one, in addition, James's father, Dr. Robert Holmes, worked for the San Diego-based HNC Software Incorporated, a company that worked with DARPA to develop chronic neural networks that enable machines to translate oral and visual stimuli and stimulate human thinking. But it doesn't stop there. The Holmes family appears to have deep connections to the military-industrial complex. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Holmes, grandfather of James Holmes, was a Turkish language graduate of the Army Language School, and later the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California, the same installation, incidentally, where alleged 9/11 hijacker Saeed Al-Ladmi supposedly trained. So you got all these deep DARPA connections with James Holmes. You see him in court. His eyes are bugging out of his skull. He looks totally detached from reality. Nobody seems to be questioning that, at least in the mainstream media. Everybody else is wondering, what's this guy on? But, of course, there's nothing there.
Most important to note about James Holmes, the shooter, however, this report says, is that his father, Robert Holmes, was said to have been scheduled to testify within the next few weeks before a U.S. Senate panel on the largest bank fraud scandal in world history that is currently unfolding and threatens to destabilize and destroy the Western banking system. And stop right there. For those of you who don't know what LIBOR is or what's going on with the quote-unquote Illuminati banksters, big banksters, getting taken down by this European and international criminal court case that literally could put them in jail. But you have to go look that up. I don't have time to explain that to you now. Just understand that that's going on, and that's what this is regarding. Now back to the story. Robert Holmes, whose blue blood family links go back to the Mayflower, is known throughout the global banking community as being the creator of one of the most sophisticated computer algorithms ever developed, and is credited with developing predictive models for financial services, credit and fraud risk models, first and third-party application fraud models, and internet online banking fraud models. Educated at the University of California, Berkeley, Stanford University, Robert Holmes is currently the senior lead scientist with the American credit score company, FICO, which was formerly known as Farrer, Isaac & Company, and which every American citizen is beholden to should they need to borrow money. It's your credit score. Okay? So there you go. That's his father. Now, he's deeply connected in the science community, and they're trying to tell us he's just an average guy. Well, apparently not. Okay, he's not just an average guy. Average guy doesn't have this for parents.
Matt, you have said, as the headline I just quoted said, we should be outraged, screaming, going nuts over this. This is the mega scandal of mega scandals. Why, and why are you so outraged?
Well, I mean, LIBOR is like the sun at the center of the financial universe. I mean, if they're monkeying around with LIBOR, I talked to one friend who works on Wall Street. He said this is like finding out that the whole world is built on quicksand, because LIBOR is in everything. It's in mortgages, it's in credit cards, it's in all kinds of investments that are tied up with municipalities and communities. So if they play with this rate, it affects everything in the world, basically. And this goes far beyond any corruption scandal we've had.
Give us a quick overview. What is it they did? I mean, explain it to folks for whom LIBOR is like a foreign language. We know the prime rate, maybe we know, we see a credit card rate on the statement we get. What's LIBOR? Who is it? Who sets it? And what have they been doing to do this?
LIBOR is basically, it's the rate at which banks charge each other to lend to each other. So it's essentially every morning a committee calls up each of the 16 banks in this committee, and they ask them how much they've been charging each other to borrow. And they report a number, and what they've been doing is lying about how much they've been charging. They've been giving lower numbers, or sometimes higher. Actually, they've been tweaking it in both directions. But essentially, they've been faking their credit scores. That's really what it comes down to.
Okay. Now, I'm going to come back to the mechanics of this in a minute, because it's important in terms of how many other people almost necessarily were involved. Right. This can't be one bank doing it because of the way they do it. The import of this is, as you just said, every interest rate in the world comes back to LIBOR. You futz around with LIBOR, you're affecting hundreds of trillions of dollars every day. Right. Dennis, Matt is, I jump out of my skin and people know when I'm upset. For Matt, this is exuberant. Dennis, do you share the sense of outrage that if they're doing this, this is corruption based on corruption based on corruption?
If anything, it's an understatement, Elliot.
I'm not prone to understatement, so explain to me why that is.
Nobody should be surprised that we have yet another corruption scandal being done by one of these global too-big-to-fail banks. This is their business model. They are based on and have been based on for a long time of making as much money as quickly as possible in any way that they cannot get caught. When they were deregulated in the early 2000s, it wasn't just that the regulators walked off the beat. They were given the green light that there were basically no rules that applied to them and they could do whatever they want. And took them about 7 years, and they caused the biggest financial crisis since the crash of 1929 and gave us the worst economy since the Great Depression. The same people who did that, the same executives with the same business model that crashed the entire financial system in 2008 are still running these banks. You know, Diamond didn't just get to Barclays. He was there throughout the run-up and the good times through the scandal. And we're facing this scandal now, and there's going to be more to the extent that anybody keeps looking, because the entire business model is corrupt and rotten to its core.
Robert Holmes is a very important and connected person in the scientific community, as well as the world's financial community. He is the creator of an algorithm software that can essentially determine the sources of money, where it went, where it came from, and other details which can link to sources. This is a threat to the world elite banking structures and plays an important role in the LIBOR scandal, which threatens Wall Street and affects the common person. He was set to testify, and this could threaten banksters all over the world. Ironically, in the latest Batman movie, The Dark Knight Rises, the plot unfolds, depicting the rich class of Gotham City facing a threat that is Bane, the criminal leader who rises up and leads a group to literally attack Wall Street. The city of Gotham learns that the rich and elite have betrayed them, and Bane uses algorithm software to track the funds to Bruce Wayne. This story is strangely similar to the threat that Robert Holmes poses to Wall Street as well.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light?
You are as precious to me as you were to your own mother and father. I swore to them that I would protect you, and I haven't.
The twilight's fast gleaming.
The mayor's gonna dump him in the spring.
Really? But he's a hero.
A war hero. This is peacetime.
You think this can last? There's a storm coming, Mr. Wayne. You and your friends better batten down the hatches. Because when it hits, you're all gonna wonder how you ever thought you could live so large and leave so little for the rest of us.
What does that mean?
Prize.
Can a microscopic tag be implanted in a person's body to track his every movement? There's actual discussion about that. You will rule on that, mark my words, before your tenure is over. Can brain scans be used to determine whether a person is inclined toward criminality or violent behavior? You will rule on that.
Allow me to introduce our American visitors. I must ask you to forgive their somewhat lackadaisical manners, but I have conditioned them, or brainwashed them, which I understand is the new American word. I am sure you've all heard the old wives' tale that no hypnotized subject may be forced to do that which is repellent to his moral nature, whatever that may be. Nonsense, of course.
So I wanted to finish the thought here. For one break, we have to hit live. It's been around the world, but it's hard to believe we're being watched in 151 countries. Crazy. That journey changed the world. I'm a big fan of it. He would save you again. And only twice, he's ready. What's the name? Once you got nothing much to do. That's fine after you're elected. Think about it. No dope. That's for sure. Great guy to work for, too.
And to get to the point, has the man ever tricked anyone? Or is enough?
I apologize, my dear Dmitri. I keep forgetting that you're a young country and your attention span is limited. Tell me, Raymond, have you ever killed anyone?
No, ma'am.
Not even in combat?
In combat? Yes, ma'am, I think so.
Of course you have, Raymond. Raymond has been a crack shot since childhood.
Marvelous outlet for his aggressions. May I have the bayonet, please?
Not with the knife, with the hands.
Now then, Raymond, take this scar and strangle Ed Mavoli to death.
All right.
Hey, Sarge, cut it up. Quiet, Ed, please. Now you just sit there quiet and cooperate.
Yes, ma'am.
What in the world were they looking for with the magic mushrooms?
I think the best answer to that is that they were looking for fundamental information on compounds that would be capable of causing changes in behavior, changes in mental attitude.
Did you ever consider what would have happened if any of these substances were given to, say, unwitting people?
Oh, I don't remember having considered that specifically.
What if you... I trust perhaps you've thought about it.
Well, I haven't worried about it. Your question again, what would I have thought had I known that
any of these substances would
have been given to
unwitting persons?
You mean a hostile agent of another government?
No,
I think that was probably one of the things they had in mind.
Testing it out on an American citizen.
I guess I must seem very, very cold-blooded about this, but I don't recall ever having been very much preoccupied with that issue.
We are not professing to tell you the complete story of these activities. We are professing to tell you the complete story that we know. Right. But these records that we've uncovered don't tell the story. They tell pieces of it.